I can't blame anybody for not being quite on their A game every single day.
The way Brady reacted and hold up his fourth, I think he thought it was third down.
If Brady's still standing out there.
Not everyone is perfect. So without further ado, let's take a look back at 10 of the most embarrassing and inexplicable times that NFL players fell asleep on the job. First up on the list, Tom Brady. Over his masterpiece of a career, Brady has earned a reputation for being one of the most cerebral players to ever step foot on the gridiron, which is what made it all the more surprising that he was absolutely caught sleeping during Week 5 of the 2020 season, when his new team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, were attempting to make a game-winning drive against the Chicago Bears. The Bucs were down 1 point, and there was just a minute 15 left on the clock. The drive started from their own 25, and after a first down, the Bucs offense stalled as Brady threw 3 straight incompletions. Then, on 4th down, yet another one, which resulted in one of the most shocking images I have ever seen. Tom Brady looking around the field, utterly bewildered, and slowly holding up 4 fingers, indicating that he thought they still had another down to go. After the game, Brady was asked if he actually forgot it was 4th down, and he was opaque with his answers. But in the time since, he has since softened, perhaps because his Bucs ended up winning the Super Bowl that year, making this but a minor footnote. Heck, he even made a meme of it himself. In some ways, this was eerily reminiscent of Peyton Manning's first Super Bowl appearance as a Denver Bronco, when he and the rest of the offense were downright embarrassed by the Legion of Boom in 2014. In Manning's case, his boneheaded moment came not at the very end of the game like Brady's, but conversely, on the very first play the Broncos ran from scrimmage. This was one of the more shocking turns of events in Super Bowl history. The Broncos came into the game as slight favorites after Peyton shut all the doubters up during his MVP-winning regular season, which was all the more impressive considering it was his first year in Denver and his first year off his neck surgery. And just like that, 7 seconds in, it felt like the game was completely over, which in a way I suppose it was. Seattle went on to win 43-8, and while the Seahawks may have gone on to win that game anyway, there is no denying that having a nonsensical miscommunication like this on the first play of the game from one of the greatest to ever play the position, no less, was not an ideal way to start it all off. But like Brady, Manning's ghosts were somewhat quieted when he and the Broncos re-summited the mountain a couple of years later, and he was able to ride off into the sunset as a Super Bowl champion. Now, as for some other quarterbacks, well, let's just say they haven't built up quite as much equity with the fans, and subsequently, they are not given nearly as much slack when they've been caught sleeping. Take our good old friend Dan Orlovsky, for example, and his legendary slip-up. All when he was playing for the Detroit Lions and his brain seemingly turned off. They were playing against the Minnesota Vikings, and as the Lions were one to do, they were pinned back against their goal line. And in that moment, Orlovsky went from a relatively anonymous journeyman quarterback to an NFL name that is synonymous with complete boneheadedness. It's regularly referred to as one of the single worst plays in NFL history. Damn, talk about panicking. Hard to believe that he has since worked for ESPN as an analyst. Not exactly the most qualified individual to talk about football, in my humble opinion. At least Orlovsky hasn't been afraid to joke about his brain fart, which is exactly what he did when another quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo of the San Francisco 49ers, pulled off the exact same stunt. And to make matters worse, this time it all unfolded on primetime television in front of a national audience as Jimmy G's brain seemingly shut off for a moment on Sunday Night Football during Week 3 of the 2022 season. Garoppolo had just re-inherited the starting role 1 week earlier, after Trey Lance went down with a season-ending leg injury. Looking to lead his team to a victory against old nemesis Russell Wilson and his new team, the Denver Broncos, Garoppolo tried to make something happen from his own end zone when, suddenly, he channeled his inner Orlovsky and did this. Yeah, that was a pretty costly mistake, especially considering the fact that the Niners went on to lose the game by a single point. Needless to say, Orlovsky was very happy to pass that torch to Jimmy G. Freedom, as he put it. Jared Goff, perhaps unsurprisingly, is another quarterback who's had his fair share of moments in which he has appeared asleep at the wheel. So much so that during his first season in Detroit, the media was already calling for his head after one particular snafu. The Lions were already down bad, sitting at 0-7, and down 24-0 against the 2-5 Philadelphia Eagles. With another 6 minutes left in the third quarter, desperation took hold and they decided to try and go for it on fourth down with 11 yards to go. Goff got flushed out of the pocket, and then, clearly forgetting the entire situation at hand, he ended up throwing the ball away. And to make matters worse, this is not the only time in which Goff appeared to lose his wits. Now, in my opinion, this isn't the worst of them. Kirk Cousins easily takes the cake, and this is not just a classic case of Kirk Cousins pile-on either. This happened way back in 2015 when Kirk was still in Washington, D.C., and long before he built his reputation for being a bona fide choke artist. And in this case, he absolutely blew it in one of the most pitiful ways imaginable, even to his standards. Washington was up 16-10 and taking one last drive before the half, trying to snag a few quick points before the intermission. And to his credit, Kirk was actually leading a very nice drive, getting the offense all the way down to the 7-yard line with just 6 seconds left on the clock. Now, one important thing to note, at this point, Washington had burnt through all 3 of their timeouts, which wouldn't have been a huge issue considering it was first and goal, and all Kirk had to do was actually spike the ball like he was supposed to. And then Washington would have likely had one shot at the end zone with some time left over for a field goal attempt after that. But Kirk decided all but to take a nap on the field, and he kneeled instead of spiking the ball, subsequently running out the rest of the clock and costing his team a shot at a quick score. There was a lot of confusion with what the play call was, and for lack of a better word, I just had a lapse in my decision making and instinctually took a knee when I should have thrown the ball away to stop the clock. Cousins said in his post-game press conference, yeah, you think? Kirk and Washington are just lucky that they ended up finding a groove in the second half and ultimately won the game 38-24. Otherwise, it would have ended up being a nightmare situation for Cousins and the media for the following week. It isn't just the players that have had these mental malfunctions, though. We saw legendary head coach Joe Gibbs have a senior moment, which I suppose is to be expected considering the advanced age he was while coaching during his second stint with Washington. But still, to see an all-time great like Gibbs screw up the way he did was pretty shocking. Washington had a mid-season matchup with the Buffalo Bills, and their season was very much hanging in the balance at that point. They were sitting right around 500, and the game was just 5 days after the tragic passing of franchise icon Sean Taylor. So, needless to say, tensions were very high. With 4 seconds left, the Bills were down 14-16 and lined up for a 51-yard field goal that would tip the score in their favor. Gibbs attempted to ice Bills kicker Ryan Lindell, which proved to be a good decision since his would-be attempt sailed through the uprights. But sadly, Gibbs went from hero to zero in a matter of moments when he called a second timeout in an attempt to further ice Lindell, forgetting that it is illegal to call 2 timeouts in a row. The result was a 15-yard penalty, making for a significantly easier attempt for the Bills kicker. Lindell ended up drilling the kick, and Washington's collective heart broke while watching the seconds expire off the clock. Their attempt at honoring the fallen Taylor was all for naught. Well, at least Joe could lean on his age as an excuse for falling asleep at the wheel. Because that's more than Green Bay Packers head coach Matt LaFleur can say for his boneheaded decision to kick a field goal during the NFC title game a couple of years ago. Green Bay was trailing 31-23 against Brady and the Buccaneers with just 2 minutes and 9 seconds left in the game. And the Packers had done pretty well to get into striking distance. It was 4th and goal from the 8-yard line, and LaFleur decided to take the ball out of future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers' hands and kick a field goal to make it a, wait for it, still a 1-score game.
Instead of going for it here on 4th and goal, Crosby makes this a 5-point game again.
They subsequently gave the ball back to Brady, who only needed to convert a couple of first downs to seal the victory. Which, rather unsurprisingly, he did. Rodgers never touched the ball again, and Brady and company advanced to the Super Bowl, where they upended the Kansas City Chiefs and captured yet another Lombardi trophy.
In that situation, first and goal on the 8, I thought it was 4-down territory.
Have to think now, with some time having passed, LaFleur has likely softened his stance that he made the right decision during that pivotal moment. Something that he steadfastly maintained during days and weeks following that game.
Went into the decision to kick the field goal there on 4th and 8, and do you regret that in hindsight?
Yeah, anytime it doesn't work out, you always regret it, right? But it was just the circumstances of having 3 shots and coming away with no yards, and knowing that you not only need the touchdown, but you'd need the 2-point. So the way I was looking at it was we essentially had 4 timeouts with the 2-minute warning. And, you know, we knew we needed to get a stop, and I thought we were going to have a stop there at the end, but you know, we got called for the PI, and it didn't work out. So I think anytime something doesn't work out, do you regret it? Sure, but we're always going to be process driven here, and the way our defense was battling, the way our defense was playing, we felt like it was the right decision to do, and it just didn't work out.
And last but not least, we have two NFL players who took this challenge rather literally and were caught actually falling asleep on the job. First up, Dallas Cowboys kicker Dan Bailey, who apparently showed up rather drowsy to Cowboys photo day. At least that's what anyone who watched Cowboys games in 2015 would have thought based on the headshot that the team used for its kicker's little bio picture. At least that was during photo day and not during an actual game, which is more than you could say about former Panthers defensive lineman Kyle Love, who seemed to really check out during a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2018. And while it may not have been the most professional of moves, I can't say that I blame him. Love was none too pleased with the allegations and even took to Instagram to indirectly rebuke the rumors. Now, whether he was actually asleep or not, well, we may never know the full truth. But from the tail of the tape, that, my friends, is an obvious example of an NFL player caught sleeping on the field. But which other NFL players have you caught sleeping on the job in the past? Was there anyone that we missed? Join us in the comments section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.